Okay, well, let's begin here in the Summa Contra Gentiles, chapter 1 of book 1, the office of the wise man. So here St. Thomas is setting out sort of the final cause of the whole work, why it's necessary, and what it is he's trying to accomplish. So that's a good rhetorical strategy to introduce the point and purpose of one's discourse. And so he begins with speaking about the fact that, according to Aristotle, and he begins right with Aristotle to show where he's going to go in the rest of the 4 volumes. Among other things that men have conceived about the wise man, the philosopher, capital P, includes the notion that, quote, it belongs to the wise man to order, end quote. St. Thomas proceeds to discuss kind of the hierarchy of order with different governments and arts. For instance, the art of medicine is hierarchically above the art of chemistry, for instance, because health is the end of medicine, and the chemist's art is ordered towards that end. He uses this analogy to speak about, the most architectonic and comprehensive universal of arts, and who would be the master artisan of that. And he says, quote, on the end of paragraph 1, the name of the absolutely wise man, however, is reserved for him whose consideration is directed to the end of the universe, which is also the origin of the universe. This is why, according to the philosopher, it belongs to the wise man to consider the highest causes. So, the highest intellectual work, and we're prescinding now from the mode of understanding vis-a-vis reason and faith, but the mode, the highest kind of wisdom would be knowledge of the highest causes of things. The end of the universe. What is the point of the whole entire thing? Studying that. So St. Thomas says, the ultimate end of the universe must therefore be the good of an intellect, because the end of everything is intended by the author, right? The end of every activity has a certain intellectual intention. So the end of the universe would be intended by its author. And of course, intention is the activity of an intellect. And the good of the intellect is truth. So truth, St. Thomas says, is the ultimate end of the whole universe. Therefore, the wise man principally considers truth. And that's what his aim is. So, St. Thomas ends this with talking about the twofold office of the wise man. To meditate and speak forth of the divine truth, which is truth in person, and to refute the opposing error. And that's what St. Thomas is going to do. Now he's going to get into a little later how it is we can speak about these ultimate truths, what are the limits of such knowledge and speaking are. For instance, the truths of the faith that tell us the most intimate and certain knowledge of the primary cause of everything, God, cannot be demonstrated by reason. Well, then what is the point of using reason to treat of these subjects? And what can reason accomplish in discussing the faith? Can it do anything to support the true faith, to refute false faiths, heresies? Well, it can, and St. Thomas will tell us how that works. What can reason know about the same object that divine faith treats, God and creation? What can reason alone know about these? And that's another thing that St. Thomas will tell us, which we've already treated in a bit in his commentary on Boethius. So in the next chapter, chapter 2, St. Thomas gives us more details and specificity about his intention. Why do such a thing? Well, he does say it's the most noble thing you could do, to pursue wisdom. The most noble, useful, and full of joy. So, can't really beat that. And he gives his reasons for that, which are pretty clear. Chapter 3, he talks about sort of the rhetorical complexity of the issue. You know, when you're speaking with people about truth and debating with them, there has to be a common ground. So when you're debating with somebody, you need some kind of common ground. You're debating truth about God from Revelation. You could debate with Jewish people using the Old Testament. You could debate with other, of course this wasn't there yet, but other denominations of Christians based on the New Testament. But he says here that with the Mohammedans and the pagans, they don't accept the Old and New Testament. I don't think St. Thomas had a very detailed and accurate knowledge of Islam. The Quran, of course, is not the Old Testament, but it does imply and presuppose a lot of the Old Testament writings. Of course, it's given a different interpretation, just like the Jewish Talmud interprets the Old Testament as well in a unique way. In any event, St. Thomas says that he's going to have, quote, recourse to natural reason, to which all men are forced to give their assent. However, it is true in divine matters, the natural reason has its failings. So on the one hand, we can use reason to prove things about God and therefore refute heretical notions that come from false authorities, for instance. On the other hand, human reason in these areas is weak. And this is where you get the tension, of course. How do we know we're using our reason correctly in attaining truth about an object that St. Thomas himself admits is not really connatural with our reasoning power? As he says in the commentary on Boethius last week, the natural object of the human intellect is a substance or essence of a material being. We do not have direct conceptual knowledge of the essence of an immaterial being, whether an angel or God. If we can't even know directly what an angel is and have connatural, empirical or experiential knowledge of such a thing, how much less do we have that of God, whose essence transcends all created things, and whose interior life is a mystery and will always be to us, even in heaven. Okay, I'm going to pause it now and continue part 3 with chapter 3.